Welcome to Lesson 5.8 on percent of change. Well, in this lesson, we are going to talk about the percent that an amount changes from an original amount. And when we find that percent, we call it a percent of change. And here is the three-step process that you're going to use to find a percent of change. Okay, so first of all, we need to find out the amount that something changes. It could go up or it could go down. And so we want to subtract those two amounts to find the amount of change. Once we know the amount of change, we're going to write a ratio, the amount of change that we just calculated, divided by the original amount, and then we're going to write that as a decimal. Once we have that decimal value, we're going to change it to a percent, and that will give us the percent of change. So let's go ahead and take a look what that looks like. When the new amount is greater than the original, we call that a percent of increase. But if the new amount is less than the original, then it's a percent of decrease. It can go up or it can go down. Here's an example with yearbooks. Last year, the yearbook club at Wesley Middle School sold 174 yearbooks. This year, they sold 200 yearbooks. Find the percent of change and round to the nearest tenth. State whether it's an increase or decrease. Well, before we do anything, we can tell from last year to this year, they're selling more yearbooks. Right? 200 is more than 174, so already we can see it is going to be an increase. So we can determine that right away. So we've got that it's a percent of increase. Let's look at what the amount of change was. The amount of change, we're going to subtract 200 and 174 to get 26. So our amount of change in red right here, the number 26 will go on top. Our original amount was 174, will go on the bottom. Okay. Take a calculator and divide those two. You start with the top number, 26 divided by 174. That's the order you put it in your calculator. Gives you this decimal value. And that decimal value written as a percent, remember to write as a percent, we move 2 to the right. So we'll get 14.94252. But we usually only want one decimal place or to the nearest tenth. So 14.9% would be our percent of increase. Here's another example. On average, Kentucky has 45 inches of rainfall every year, but in 2006 it had 54 inches of rainfall. Find the percent of change, tell whether it's an increase or decrease. Well, already you can tell it's an increase because there's more rain. The amount of change, we're going to take the two numbers 54 and 45 and subtract them. So we had an increase of 9 inches. So we're going to put that change over the original. The original amount was 45 inches, and 9 divided by 45 on your calculator is 0.20. That decimal, when we move 2 places to the right, gives us 20% as a percent. So the percent of change is 20%, and it's greater than the original, so it was an increase. All right, here's couple for you to try. Let me do A and B, and I'll have you pause the video and try C and D. It says find each percent of change, round to the nearest tenth, and tell whether it's an increase or decrease. Well, if our original said 6 hours, our new amount is 10 hours, how much change is there? Well, that looks like a change of 4 hours, so we're going to put 4 on the top, divided by the original of 6, so we have 4 over 6. So as a decimal, 4 over 6 is 0.6 repeating. Move 2 to the right, and it gives us 66.7%. And since it was more than what we had in the original, this is an increase. All right, part B, let's take a look at that one. Our original is 80 water bottles. Our new is 55. Well, this went down, so this is going to be a percent decrease. How much did it go down? What is 80 minus 55? Well, that change is what? 25. And we're going to do 25 over our original of 80. So 25, 80 minus 55 gives us our 25. Divided by 80 gives us 0.3125. Move our decimal 2 to the right, and that's a 31.25. And to the nearest tenth, it's 31.3, and it's a decrease. All right, this is your chance now. Go ahead and work on letter C and letter D, and I'll give you the answers to those when we come back. All right, hopefully you did those on your own. Here is answer C, and I'm not going to spend time walking through these. If you have questions, please ask me in class. Here is your answer to part D. All right, a store sells an item for more than it paid for the item. They have to do that to stay in business. We call that a markup. Okay, and the percent of the markup is a percent increase. Same thing as we've been talking about, but this is just another term that they call it. The amount that we pay as customers is called the selling price. Pretty logical. So let's take a look. If we want to find the selling price, let's say we have a bead store and they buy some stuff at wholesale prices and then they sell them at a 75% markup. So let's say they pay, a strand of beads costs the store $9.14. They need to charge us more than that so that they can make some money. And they're going to charge us 75% more than that. We want to find out what they're going to sell it for. Well, the whole, this is our percent equation that we talked about in our last lesson. The whole is $9.14. The percent is 75%. So we need to find the amount of the markup, or the part. Okay, the part is M, the percent is 0.75, the whole is 914. Multiplying those together, we get 686, which is $6.86. That's how much they're going to mark it up. So we have to add that to the 914 to get the selling price. And that gives us a total of $16, which is what we will have to pay as customers. So here's a chance. I'm going to go ahead and walk through the one on the left, and I'm going to have you bring your answer to class on the one on the right. Find the selling price for the item and given the percent of markup. If we have a digital camera for $120 and they mark it up 55%, well, we're going to take the part, which is 100, we're looking for the part. The whole is 120. We're going to take 55%, which is 0.55 as a decimal. Okay, and we're going to multiply 0.55 times 120. That gives us $66. $66 is what they will add to the $120 that they paid for it. So that gives us a total of $186. So that's what the selling price would be. Okay. Sunglasses are $7. There's a 30% markup. Bring your answer to that one to class. Here's a shipping example. Let's say Cheng Yu ordered a book that cost $24 from an online store, but her total with shipping was $27. What was the percent markup that was charged for shipping? Well, what was the change? The change was $3. 27 minus 24 gives us $3, and divided by the original, okay, 3 divided by 24 gives us 0.125, and we have to move that decimal 2 to the right to get our percent. So that was a 12.5% markup. What if we want to find the sale price? Okay, this is kind of the opposite of a markup, a discount. Okay, the percent of change is a percent of decrease. So let's say you have a CD discount superstore. They're having a 20% off sale. And let's say you want to buy a CD that originally cost $18.50, but now it's on sale for 20% off. How much are you going to pay for the CD? Well, we want to find the part. How much is that discounted? So we're going to use our percent as a decimal times the original whole price of $18.50, and that tells us that they're going to mark it down $3.70. So this time, instead of adding it, because it's a discount, we'll subtract it. So $18.50 minus $3.70 gives us $14.80, and that is the sale price. That's what we would pay. All right, here's one on the left-hand side. Find the sale price to the nearest cent. Okay, the nearest cent is the nearest hundredth. Okay, 2 decimal places. So there's a CD for $14.50. It's 10% off. So we got to find out how much of the discount they're going to take. So we're going to take that 10%, 0.1 as a decimal, and multiply it by $14.50, which gives us $1.45. That's how much the price will go down. So we're going to take $14.50, the original, and subtract off that discount for a total of $13.05 for the sale price. All right, for the sweater on the right, bring your answer to class. You want to know what is the price that you are going to have to pay if it's on sale at 25% off. And that does it for this video. We'll see you next time.